Welcome to the 19th presentation in our series on action learning. We're very pleased that you are joining us. This presentation is about troubleshooting action learning programs. I'm Carter McNamara of Authenticity Consulting. We're providing this series to make action learning even more available and more accessible to everyone. This presentation is one in a series and they are best viewed in order, so please be sure to visit the website listed below for more information on the complete series as well as more information about our company. And so now, let's get started. Congratulations! By now, you have a fairly good understanding of action learning and its elements. And your program team has drafted a program plan and perhaps even established some groups. The more attention you spend on carefully designing and developing your program, the less likely there'll be a lot of troubleshooting to do. Still, each program is different, so troubleshooting can occur in any of them. Sometimes, when people are troubleshooting a program, they tend to focus their efforts on the symptoms of the issues rather than on the real causes. So we'll share some advice about how to avoid that. In this presentation, we'll first mention the most frequent symptoms of issues that can occur. Then we'll review some general guidelines for aiming at the real causes of problems rather than their symptoms. Then we'll look at diagnosing, we'll call it, issues in single project programs and in multi-project programs. It's not very common to hear of ongoing problems with action learning groups. If problems do occur, then there can be a range of symptoms, such as low attendance to meetings, or if people do attend, there's low participation. Sometimes disruptive behaviors, such as unmanaged conflicts, strong disagreements, and sometimes there's just lack of progress on projects. At worst case, one of the symptoms is lack of learning. The causes, though, of those symptoms can be many, and we'll talk more about those in this presentation. Let's move on. First, let's look at some general guidelines for addressing issues in action learning. First, any program needs someone who knows the best practices in designing and operating an action learning program. They'll need that for implementing solutions. We've described most, if not all, of them in this series. Next, it's very important that efforts to address problems are done carefully, credibly, and respectfully. Especially in company programs, there is some risk for members in the group because their supervisors might be monitoring members' performance in the groups a bit. That should be avoided if it's well designed. Besides, members usually feel some anxiety in any new type of activity. Therefore, when a problem is suspected in a program or some type of issue, consider always having more than one person working to address the issue. For example, the sponsor or the facilitator. If there's a problem with just one member in one group, then perhaps the facilitator alone can address it. Next, base your perceptions of an issue not on your gut feeling, but on what you see and what you hear. Gut feelings can be very distorted. For example, if you already don't like the person who might be involved in the issue, or even if you're just having a bad day, your perceptions might be completely off. Your eyes and ears usually give you the most objective and therefore the most accurate evidence of issues and their causes. Later on, you might even be asked to describe or justify your actions to resolve an issue. That'll be much easier to do if you have verifiable evidence that you saw and you heard, rather than if you merely just went with a gut feeling. Next, be sure to respond to the issue right away. An action learning group meets on a regular basis, and if an issue is reported by members, yet those members don't get any resolution before the next meeting, then that next meeting can have even more issues because members are frustrated and disillusioned. Lastly, the real causes of an issue are usually found one level up from the symptoms. For example, if several members of a group report an issue, then the cause is most likely with the facilitator or the program rather than with those members. Similarly, if several groups in a program report an issue, then the cause is most likely with the overall program. We'll give many more examples in this presentation. Let's review an example where there's a problem with only one member in a single project program. For example, symptoms might be ongoing low attendance, low participation, or even disruptive behavior. The likely causes might be that that person is just not suited to action learning after all, or lacks supervisor support to attend meetings. There might be a personal problem that he or she is struggling with. There might be just a mismatched chemistry with the other members in the group. Likely solutions usually come from the sponsor or the facilitator working with the supervisor of that member or the member herself, but probably outside of meetings. Or ultimately, maybe the member just leaves the group. In the case of one member having an issue in one group, then the solution might just be accomplished by one person, the facilitator. Do you notice how the causes of the issue, though, might not be that the person is somehow just an irresponsible person? And if the member is simply reprimanded over time, that might not address the real causes of the member's issues. What about if there's issues with several members in a single project program? Then symptoms might be ongoing low attendance, low participation, disruptive behaviors, and then many complaints. And the causes of the problem are probably, again, one level up from the members. The causes might be that action learning does not match the culture of that organization. Maybe it's just a poor project. That is, it's not real, it's not current, it's not important. Maybe there's lack of management support for the program in the organization. Sometimes there's an unsupportive client. There's a person who owns the problem and thus is the client, but is not really helping the group to help the client. Or there could be just overall poor facilitation. Solutions might be to redesign the program so that there's a better project. It might be to rescope the project so it's really more important. It might even be to train the client and retrain the facilitator. Notice how the likely solution is not simply to reprimand all of the members. So now let's look at multi-project programs. If there's an issue with one member in a group, then the situation is similar to a single project program. For example, symptoms might be low attendance, low participation, disruptive behaviors, lack of learning progress, and then some complaints from that member. And causes, again, might be that that person's just not suited to action learning, or he might be lacking support from his supervisor to even attend meetings. He might have a personal problem going on right now, and again, there might be just I'll call it a mismatched chemistry with other members. And solutions? The facilitator might work with the member outside of the meeting, or ultimately they might just have to remove the member altogether. Remember that a multi-project program often has more than one group. So in this example, if there's issues with several members in a low percentage of groups in the program, then symptoms might be low attendance, low participation, disruptive behaviors, lack of learning and progress, and then maybe many complaints. But the causes might be just poor facilitation in that low number of groups, sometimes a poor mix of members. They just don't have a good diversity or good commitment to the program. Solutions might be that the sponsor works with the facilitators of those few groups. Maybe there's some retraining, probably with facilitators more than members. Or you remix the members for more of a diversity. It might be, though, over time you just end up replacing the facilitators in that low percentage of groups in the multi-project program. But if there's issues in a high percentage of groups in a program, then symptoms might be ongoing low attendance amongst many, low participation, the disruptive behaviors we talked about, little progress or little learnings reported. There might be many complaints across the entire program. In that case, the causes is usually not the members, it's not the facilitators. It's usually just an overall poor program design. There might not be good training, so maybe the facilitators and members really don't even know their roles. Notice that those causes are not associated with people, facilitators, they're not associated with members. Overall, you've got to go up one level, as we talked about. So solutions might be to just redesign the program entirely, maybe even including retraining facilitators and the members. Lastly, if it's clear that there are ongoing issues with an overall program, then symptoms most likely would have been recurring and unresolved problems with groups, many complaints, certainly low attendance, and over time little progress on projects or learnings. Again, those symptoms would have been recurring. Causes most likely have to do with poor leadership, because someone should have stepped in long ago to address the issues. Solutions then are most likely leadership development for the management and the program, or in fact just tactfully terminate the program. Thank you for viewing this presentation. We hope that you'll go on to the next one. You might benefit from the following resources to add even more detail to our overviews of action learning. The website Action Learning Central references an extensive amount of free resources, including about the action learning process, each of its key elements, examples of action learning programs, and tools for each aspect of action learning. There's even an action learning glossary with definitions for each of the common terms in action learning. Our company, Authenticity Consulting, also is available to answer your questions or to help you in any other way. Our firm does very successful action learning groups around the world and for a wide variety of outcomes and applications. There's also the free management library at managementhelp.org. You can find resources and tools for almost any activity in the workplace, including for many of the activities in action learning. You can find more about each of these three resources by going to actionlearningcentral.com/gratis and select the presentation entitled General Resources for Action Learning. Thank you.